Hey, welcome back to the Breaking Bread Village. I'm really excited to have this conversation today. I have Chevjon here with me today to share her story about, kind of growing up in the foster care system. We're going to talk about kind of how she got there and where her life is now. So we're going to get started here in a second. Thank you so much for being here again. Truly appreciate it.
Oh,
We breaking bread, yeah. We breaking bread, yeah. We breaking bread, yeah. One conversation at a time. We breaking bread, yeah. We breaking bread, yeah. We breaking bread, yeah. One conversation at a time.
The Breaking Bread Village.
One conversation at a time.
The Breaking Bread Village.
One conversation at a time.
Okay, we are going to get started. Chevjon, again, thank you so much for being here today. I truly appreciate it.
you're welcome. Thank you for having me. I'm
Yes,
excited.
yeah, I'm really, as I shared with you, the foster care system, children, adoption, all that stuff is really close and dear to my heart. I really know that foster care is a good thing. I've seen some really good foster care situations where children were taken out of certain situations and placed in some really good homes. I also advocate, though, for a little bit more proper vetting because I feel like sometimes kids are kind of shuffled into homes, to get caseloads off of people's desks, and that's no dig or anything towards the caseworkers because I understand their life. I understand that they are overworked, underpaid, and overstressed. So I get it, but I also feel for the children who unfortunately develop trust issues when they are in bad home situations, and then when they're placed in possible bad, foster care situations. Their trust level is even more so impacted by that. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100% agree. Those constant moves, every time a child moves from one place to the next, like that level of trust just, it goes down a little bit each time. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, I want you to kind of tell us about your situation. Kind of how you ended up in the foster care system, and then we'll go from there.
okay. So I went into foster care really early. My mom left us when I was 2 years old, and my dad tried to be a single parent and just did not work out for him very well. He was the only way he knew to make money were all the wrong ways. So we ended up in CPS care when I was probably in kindergarten. I was about 5 years old. And we moved a lot. We bounced around quite a bit. We went through a couple of family placements, and those didn't work out very well either. And I ended up aging out of foster care at 16.
So you aged out at 16, you said.
I did. I finished high school at 16, and I was able to leave then and go to college and age out of foster care.
Okay, and we'll talk about that too because I've always had some questions in regards to the age for aging out as well. But so tell me, so you say your father, he did all the wrong things trying to take care of you all, and then you ended up into the foster care system. How many of it was you all that went into the system?
There were three of us. I have an older sister and a younger brother.
Okay. So, and they kept you all together at first, I'm assuming?
Yeah. At first we were together, and then like in the family placements, we were most of the time together. But as we got older, it was harder to find foster placements that were willing to accept sibling groups. And then it was even more difficult to find foster placements that would accept sibling groups with older children. And my sister was 4 years older than us. So when she became a teenager, I was still only 9 years old. And at that point, it was like almost impossible to find someone willing to accept a 13-year-old girl, even though, there was also a 9-year-old and an 8-year-old.
And then so you and your brother were together. Your sister got separated from you all. Now, did you and your brother stay together as well throughout the time?
Not all the time. So when we got to be just a little bit older, I ended up in in an all-girls home. It was a foster home, and it was an older lady, and she only accepted like teenage preteen girls. And my brother ended up halfway across the state of Louisiana in a different foster placement with, I mean, just a they didn't have any specifics. So I'm not really sure why I couldn't go there with him, but he
Right.
definitely couldn't come where I was.
So were you all able to keep in touch at all while you all were separated, or no?
They tried to do like family visitation, but because he was so far away from where I was, it didn't work out. And my sister and I, we didn't see each other again until she was, I want to say, like 18. And she
Oh,
was
wow.
18 in foster care. Yeah, so we were separated for a long time. I know whenever my foster family would go on vacation, I would go into what's called respite, and you go stay with another foster family until your family gets back, and they would try to put me in respite where my brother was.
Oh, okay. So tell me about some of your experiences in the foster the foster care placements that you're in, because I really want to talk about how sometimes, especially as a child, that trust is broken.
Mm-hmm.
Based on being put in the wrong type of homes. I really feel, and this is me on the outside looking in, of course, I always feel like, a little bit more vetting should be done before some of these kids are placed in some of these homes, because some people are just looking for a check.
Absolutely.
Yeah, some people are really broken, and then they try to break the kids even more so. And I know a lot of children who have been deeply impacted by, based on the result of being in a certain foster home. So tell me about some of your experiences so people can understand kind of what you went through.
Okay, so I moved probably, I would like to think that I moved more than the average foster kid, because if all foster kids move as much as I did, the system has issues. But I went to probably like 3 different schools each grade year, because I would move every 3 or 4 months.
Oh my
So,
goodness.
yeah, I moved a lot as a foster kid. It was rough. So I know of all the placements I've been in, there's only one I can think of that was like a good placement for me. It was with the older lady, and I knew for sure she wasn't doing it for a paycheck. She did it because she genuinely cared about changing the lives of teenage girls. And she was so strict, and I just thought she was a strict old lady. But now she's my absolute favorite person, and we're still friends to this day. But
you kind of broke up a little bit right there. You kind of close to the mic, I guess. What did you say? She's what to this day?
oh, she's like one of my absolute favorite people to this day. I mean,
Oh,
yes, she's amazing, but it took a long time, and I had to go through a lot of foster placements to get to her. And the ones before her were either physically abusive or sexually abusive. And as a child, there were times where I would tell my caseworker, like, this person is doing these things to me. And they would say, Chevjon, at this point, we don't have a lot of options. So either you just deal with it, or we'll find like a detention center to put you in, and it was always one of those scary things. So,
okay, Chevjon, you're breaking up again a little bit. I don't know if you're holding the phones too close to your mouth or what, but I want to get what you said at the end there. You said that you reached out to your caseworker and it said, I don't feel comfortable here. This is not right here. And what was their response? I'm sorry.
they would always say either you make this work here, or we put you in a detention center or something, because we're running out of foster placement options.
Oh, so they would say you either stay where you are or they're going to put you into some type of detention center.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it was using fear to get you to just shut up and keep, just go through it, and then, eventually it'd be over. But when you had to choose between a detention center and a sexually abusive foster parent, you usually chose the foster parent.
Wow, I'm so sorry. I know you don't, need my pity, but I just, it's just heartbreaking, because I know so many children who have been in those type of situations. Either I know them now as adults, or I know children who are still children. And I don't know what to do. You know how you feel like it's something I should be doing, but I don't know what to do. And how do you save everybody all the time, right? So the idea that you as a child were, first of all, brave enough, brave enough to say, hey, somebody is sexually abusing me, someone is hurting me, so, I don't feel comfortable here, I need help. And for the adult, that it's almost like, you're in this bad situation from your original home, right? And then you have this caseworker that is there to almost kind of save you, right? And then when you get into this new situation that's also bad, you go to the person that you thought was there to help you and save you.
Right.
They tell you, well, you either stay there and keep getting sexually abused, or you go to a detention center. I mean, that's just, where's the help?
Yeah, I don't know, but it was not where I was, that's for sure. And I know, like, the more frequently it would happen, and you would say something, at some point they were just like, okay, it has to be you. Like, you have to be the problem because you are the one constantly being sexually abused. And so then they don't believe you as much. But people groom children from a very young age. And once you have been sexually abused by someone, it's like the world knows, and they can read it on your forehead, and somehow you end up always in the hands of the wrong person.
I've heard several people say that they felt like, as adults, when they talk about their story, they've said that where they felt like people just gravitated towards them because they could see something. They felt like somebody could see something on them and use them as a target. What do you think that is?
I don't know. I wish I had an answer for you.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I was just saying, I honestly don't know.
Yeah, it just deeply impacts me so much that people go through that, and there's no help. Now, I will say again, I know people who are in some really good situations, and like you spoke about the older lady that took you in, where they're still friends to this day. They still go to picnics together. They still stay in touch. But I also hear so many stories of children who are hurt this way. So you're in that home that was problematic and abusive and just hurt you in so many ways. Did that continue in other homes?
It did, up until I was 13. And I was placed with the lady I told you about, and she was amazing. And so when I aged out of foster care at 16, we ended up or I went off to college, but the last time I was sexually abused was when I was 12. It was before I went to the older lady I was telling you about. And it was supposed to be a kinship placement because this man was not a relative of mine, but he knew my family my entire life. Well,
okay.
Yeah, we thought it was going to be great. And we moved in with him, and it did not take long for the sexual abuse to start. And I remember my sister had told her boyfriend at the time, and I remember the police knocking on our door. We were in Collin County, in Dallas or Plano, and so many police officers just rushed our house and were like, "Where is this person?" Right? And so my uncle came out. It's me, and we spent hours at Collin County Advocacy Center. It had to be 3 a.m. before they finally found a temporary emergency shelter to put us in. And my uncle ended up, we called him our uncle because we knew him, but we weren't related. He ended up getting 15 sentences for the sexual abuse.
I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit. He ended up getting what? 15
life sentences for sexual assault to children. And he was just the most disgusting, perverted person. And he videotaped all of it. So that was,
oh my goodness.
But even then, like even in court, they talked about how the system had failed us because apparently he'd had some prior situations that were public record, and the judge still chose to send us there. So it was an experience.
That is not unique either. That is not unique where you find out that people already have other type of complaints against them, and that just really ticks me off because and it really boils me up too when this is someone that, like you said, was considered a family friend, someone, a relative, and he purposely took you all to be able to prey on you and abuse you, and that's just disheartening. So I mean, he got what he deserved, so that's neither here nor there. But I feel bad for what you all went through. That's terrible because, again, this is another person that you so-called trusted, right? That took advantage of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So okay, let's get to the part where you aged out. So you're 16. You aged out of the system. How did that happen? How did that work? Because my thing is that I've always been so conflicted with the idea that as soon as someone is 16, and they have homes now that are, different programs that are different now. But, one thing that really bothers me is that when someone turns 16, and they just kind of throw them out with no type of life skills. I mean, almost as a broken person sometimes, and they throw them out into the street. And I had a girl on here a couple weeks ago, and she deals in the drop-in center. So she deals with homelessness. And we talked about how foster care and the homeless shelters are directly, related to each other at times because of this very thing, when they just kind of throw you out to the wolves, essentially, with no real money, no real skill sometimes. So tell me how that went for you when you were 16 and you aged out.
It was horrible. You said no real money. They don't give you any fake money either,
You know what? I asked that because sometimes there's like government programs where you can sign up for something. That's why I said it loosely, because I'm not sure all the time. So they don't give you anything.
Nothing. So I was living in a friend's car. Oh my gosh, it was horrible. And I got a job at 16 working at Kroger, making $5.15 an hour, living out of my friend's Toyota Corolla. So,
wow.
Yeah, it was horrible. I didn't have a driver's license because no one bothered teaching me how to drive.
Right.
And all I had was a high school education, and I was starting college. So that was really it. I just made friends. I made a bunch of friends, and they fit to use with the older friends because they could teach me things. Like my first boyfriend taught me how to drive a car, so that when I turned 18, I was able to borrow his car and go get a license. But those are things that I believe parents should be teaching their children. And when you don't have parents, you have to find, someone else to do that for you. There were so many things I didn't know, like my first doctor's appointment. Well, I didn't know that I still qualified for Medicaid because I was technically a child. So
right.
I couldn't afford hospital visits. So my first time taking myself to the doctor was as a 17-year-old, and I went into a Planned Parenthood, and I had to pay cash for my checkup. And
wow.
So there, yeah. But it was grateful for, the Dallas bus system, because that's how I got to that appointment. And I don't even know about Planned Parenthood, but yeah, I'd heard someone mention Planned Parenthood, and I looked it up, and I called all the ones closest to me.
You're breaking up just a little bit, Chevjon. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, but yeah, so I was, there was a lot of things that I just had to learn on my own that I wish someone had told me. And then when it came to college, I ended up with a lot of student loans because I thought that was the way to pay for college. No one told me that when you go into foster care, the state of Texas pays for you to go to school. So when I found out that I was doing the classes to become a foster parent, and they mentioned it in the class, and so I called the number and I told them who I was, and they could look up my record as a foster child, and they said, "You missed it. You just turned, 23, and the program ends at 22." And I was like, "Oh my gosh!" But it would have been so great if someone had told me about those resources and
right. But like you said, you had nobody there to direct you. And we have Sharon here that says she wanted to start a program for aging out foster kids, because they do, they don't teach you anything, and that's so disheartening because you're a 16-year-old child who has been through so much. I mean, so much emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually. I mean, all of it, right? And then,
Mm-hmm.
okay, see ya. It's been real. Hope
Right.
everything works out for you. Essentially, what happens. And now you're out here in a world that you don't know, you don't understand. And then, so where did you find people to kind of these friends? Did you just find them on the street? Like, are these people that you knew from the system? How did you connect with people?
Typically through work. So, sorry, I don't know what that loud noise is.
That's okay. I know.
Okay, but yeah, typically through work. So my first boyfriend was a guy who worked with me, and he was already a grown up. He was like 4 years older than me, so he taught me how to drive and how to go get my license and things like that. So ideally, you don't want your 16-year-old daughter dating a 20-year-old, but other times you just gotta, do what you can. And so that's usually where I found people like at work. And the friend whose car I was living, like I met her through work, and she was much older than me too, but she was willing to let me stay in her car. So
And it's sad because you were still put in a position where you had to trust and hope for the best. I mean, that's essentially what happens.
absolutely.
You hear so many people, especially teenagers who are homeless, that end up getting violated on the street too in those type of situations because they really don't have anywhere else to go. So they rely on people.
Mm-hmm.
They hope, well, at least give them a place to stay. And sometimes they have to do things to get that, unfortunately. So you were still put in a very, tough situation. And thankfully, like you said, it worked out. I mean, worked out, in the big, if you really look at, who wants to be in a car, but you weren't being victimized.
Right. And you know what? The mindset is usually it can't be much worse than what I've already gone through.
That's true. Mm.
And so when you mentioned, I think it was Karen who said she wanted to start a place for children aging out of foster care. A lot of times those kids, by the time you get to age, you don't want to have to do with, you don't want to have to deal with anyone who in any way resembles child protective services because you've been let down by them so many times. So now they offer programs. It's called the YES program here in Texas. It's the Young Adult Program. And you can sign yourself up to stay in the foster care system longer so that you can get the license. But no 18-year-old wants to sign that form for you to continue to tell them what to do when you don't listen to them. So they're like, at 18, I'll take my chances, and it can't be worse than what I've already gone through.
And and unfortunately, isn't that's a terrible place to be in, where like you said, I'll just kind of take my chances because it can't be any worse. I mean, I just don't understand. It just breaks my heart because children don't ask to be here. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And then people do this and just abuse them and misuse them and just all just all this wear and tear they put on these young people's bodies and their minds and their souls. And then and then when they turn 18, if they steal because they're hungry or if they are loitering somewhere because they don't have anywhere else to go, we want to lock them up. And that's the part that just really ticks me off because it's this idea that you've already failed them, you haven't protected them, now you're throwing them out to the wolves, and then when they join in with the wolves because that's all they know or they're trying to survive, then we want to put them in incarceration.
Right, absolutely. And that's why there's such a correlation between foster children and the jail.
Yes. I looked up those numbers. I'm not really a stat person. Like, numbers sometimes are not my thing, but I definitely researched to see, okay, am I crazy? Is this
No.
and I'm like, I know there is definitely that correlation because it just makes sense. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Oh, and thankfully I hate using the word survived. Because, but I'm just so happy to see that you are thriving now in life, because you have a story, honey. And when you think about everything you went through being, separated from your parents originally, and then separated from your siblings, because sometimes they say at least if you have a sibling with you, you have some type of, nugget of hope, some
Right.
type some support there, where even if y'all crying together, you're together. You get what I'm
Right.
saying? It's not
Uh-huh.
good. But I'm just saying, that's how some people look at it. But then you're separated from your siblings. Then you get placed into these different homes that continue to abuse you. Then at 16, you're in someone's car trying to make it off of $5 something an hour. I mean, I just think about all of this, and then you're still smiling today. And when I hear stories like this, when I get to talk to people like you, never will I glorify your life and say, oh, I don't like to, really celebrate the bad that you went through, but I love to celebrate the resiliency, and the fact that you
Mhm.
are still standing and they couldn't destroy you like they tried. Because I want you to talk about your life now, because, I really want to get some pictures and share of your beautiful family, which we can see there, and just, how you all are building. I call it an empire. When you know how to grow your food or have your own land, that's an empire to me, baby. I don't think about mansions and stuff. I think about, that type of generational wealth. So talk about your family now, and just kind of talk about how you segued into that other chapter of your life.
So my husband and I met when we were 8 years old. I was in a foster home in Louisiana, and his dad was stationed at a military base there. And somehow, wherever his dad was stationed, I ended up in a foster home close by.
I didn't
So,
know that. Okay. Oh, that's awesome. Okay. Okay.
so at um, so the guy who taught me to drive was my first husband, and it lasted a year. And then I joined the military. And my
Oh,
husband, yeah, and my husband now was in the Air Force as well. And somehow we found each other, um, and ended up in Alaska together. And then we had a million children. We got stationed in San Antonio, and we adopted a million more children. Uh, so we adopted 3 kids, and we have 8 kids. So we have 11 children. In the picture, you're missing like 4 of them, I think.
I've seen the pictures, but they can't see them. So all together, because you broke up just a little bit, all together you have 11 children. You adopted 8, and you had 3 naturally.
We had 8, and we adopted 3.
You adopted, okay. Okay, all right, okay.
But yeah, so there's like a small army of them, and we, people always laugh because I drive this massive van. It's like a 15-passenger transit, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, there's so many kids in that thing."
Yeah, no, I love it. I love, what I love about it is that, I don't know. I just love to see people thrive despite what they've been through,
Yeah.
because, of course we all have a story. I mean, we all probably could sit down and talk about our story, but all of us don't make it. All of us don't keep smiling. All of us don't, soar. So, I really appreciate that. But what you mentioned about going to, into the service, that better supports too sometimes. Cause my son just enlisted in the National Guard, and, yeah. And see, when they were growing up, I was never like anti that, but I always was very cautious, because of them being, we were kind of like poor at some time, I was a single mother. They were growing, and I always saw, I always felt, and, and this is just my feeling about it, that sometimes, especially with Black and brown and poor white children, sometimes they get kind of preyed on at times because they don't feel like they have any other option, right? Sometimes they feel like this is, do you hear what I'm saying? Sometimes they feel like this is their only option to make it, to get some kind of support. So they kind of sacrifice themselves, so to speak, to be able to, like you say, go to college or, have some type of security. And that breaks my heart, because I don't mind people doing it, because I don't want to do it. So I appreciate anybody that does it. But I don't like when people feel like they have to
do it. Absolutely.
Yeah, you get what I'm saying? So you kind of, is that why you went, or did you just want to?
Absolutely. No, it was definitely that. So, that was the only guarantee to have, like a room and food, because the military paid for my food and they paid for the roof over my head. So it was worth the sacrifice for me because I had a place to stay. Uh, and it is sad that a lot of people, like especially low income families, if you're not athletic, that's the only way to get out of the situation that you're in or to get out of the bad neighborhood that you live in, is join the military and you get a ticket to travel around the world, and it could come at the expense of your life, but it's something you're willing to gamble with.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, so thank you for touching on that part too, because that's always been my thought process. And, it's troubling sometimes for me because I don't want people to feel like, because I'm poor, I have to do this. I want you to want to do it just because you want to do it. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what you want to do. That's neither here nor there. Because I know, like for you, so some people it really saved them. Like you said, it gave them a place of security. People that they saw consistently. We take for granted consistency. We take for granted seeing the same people. Because like you said, you went to 3 different schools in 1 year, for most of your, what do you say, for like 3 years or something, that's a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. That stability is so important, and you don't realize how badly you need it. But, and my husband joined the military for totally different reasons. He grew up a privileged life, but his family were military as far back as he could remember. So it was always the plan for him. And so now, he's retired military, and we bought 20 acres in Texas, and we just do whatever we feel like doing.
How many acres?
20.
Girl, when am I coming to visit? Listen, I'm gonna be out in Texas in July. I need to come.
Oh, are you really? You should totally come visit.
No, listen. I have. This is a God honest truth. I have a route this summer because we couldn't do anything last year because of COVID. I have a route this summer of people that have been on the show that I really want to connect with in person because I love to connect with people in real life. And just sit and chop it up. So I would love to come down and get on that 20 acres. Don't you have chickens and stuff too?
I do. We have 8 chickens. We have 2 dogs. We have 3 goldfish. And my husband's like, why is this girl out here building a horse barn? Because I'm getting some horses. Like, obviously,
Oh, that just warms my heart. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, but yeah, as soon as I finish building this chicken coop that I'm sure you've seen by now.
I did see it.
Like, I am going to get out there and start on that horse barn. And a lot of people think it's funny because they think my husband's the one doing the work. And I'm like, no, I'm the one out here building this thing.
No, I love it. I love that. I love that you have built an empire. And that's what I call that. It's built out of love. It's built out of joy. Family is surrounded by. Your children get to see, like you said, you're building stuff with your own hands. You are securing yourselves for a lifetime. So I think that is amazing. I love it. I just love your strength. I just love the positivity that you have. And I love you all's story too. And I love how, I think that's amazing how you all both came from different angles, but still found each other and are able to, I'm sure, learn from each other. What I'm saying? And be able to kind of balance each other out because you have an experience way different than his that he would never understand and vice versa. And you guys can kind of learn from each other,
Right. And give our kids the best of both worlds.
Yeah. That's it. That balance, baby. That balance is no joke.
I agree.
No, I love that. No, I'm going to stay connected with you and keep in touch because I definitely will. I will swing by and see the land and just, I don't know. I love to see stuff in real life. I love to just celebrate with people, because I look at it, hey, if you got it, I got it. We all got it. I look at things.
I would love to have you come visit.
Oh, that's amazing. And so how is it with your adopted children? Because like I shared with you, I'm adopted myself. How is it, with you understanding what it felt like to not be loved, to not feel family? How have you, kind of given back to them to make sure they understand that they are loved?
Oh, I feel like I could talk a whole hour just on that topic. So it was so important to me. We adopted our kids from foster care, and usually that means like they have no connection to their birth family once the adoption is finalized. But I knew it was like growing up without a mom, and I don't care what anybody say, the feeling that comes from a birth mother is not the same as an adopted mom. Like, and I knew that I could never give them whatever a birth mother could. So it was important to me that they have that relationship. So even though their mom made bad decisions, we were able to stay in touch. Like, they were able to write letters to her. Get to know yeah, like we did a pen pal thing, and they got to know who she was. And that, my adopted children are Hispanic, and neither my husband or I are Hispanic. So that heritage and that culture was also something that I couldn't give to them. It was something I desperately wanted them to have, because I hated going into the doctor's office and they're like, "Do you have any family history of all these things?" And I'm like,
I know.
I don't know those people, So, and it's an embarrassing feeling, because you feel like it's one of those things where that self-worth creeps up on you. You're like, I feel worthless because I don't even know who I am. I wanted my children to know who they were, even if they couldn't live in that place. So they've always had the ability to reach out to their birth family. And then just last year, before COVID happened, we had agreed that they could go visit their mom for spring break. And at this point, she's gotten her life together. She's making great decisions. She's kept her job for years. And so it was a really crazy, really moment. They hadn't seen their mom in about 7 years. And my children,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, my children now are 11, 15, and 17, and they had not seen their mom in 7 years. So, the 11-year-old didn't even know she was looking at her mom, because she had just, she had written her letters, she had heard her voice over the phone, and she even saw pictures, those Snapchat filters can do something to a picture. And
them Snapchats, listen, them filters are no joke, okay? It's like, no minute.
Seeing her mom in real life, she's like, wait, who is that? She didn't know. But it turned out to be great for them. My husband was worried, and he was like, this must be that foster care stuff, and I'm like, it's important for them to know their mom, to feel their mom, hug them and explain to them, like, it wasn't you guys, you weren't the problem, it was me, it's always been me, and I love you, no matter what. So, no, that's so crazy. Their mom actually just texted me right now.
That's so funny. Hey, sometimes the stars just align that way. It's just so interesting, because I think too, I think when you say, it's important for them to know them, especially when, if the person is doing better in their life, if they're not toxic anymore in that capacity, and see, for me, I was really young, so I was never really connected to my birth mother, because I was a baby. So my adopted mother is my mother. I mean, she's all I know, and I love her for it, and she'll always be that. But I did find my family later, a couple years ago, and that's a whole nother conversation. And when I come on your acres and sit there and talk with you, we can talk about it.
Yeah, you will have to tell me about it.
Yes, it's an interesting story, but I'm happy that I did find that, because it is true what you said about at least knowing where you come from, so to speak, because that is an empty feeling that people don't understand, who have been gifted with knowing their heritage and knowing where they come from. And like you said, I mean, even when I first started having children, and I would go to the doctor, and they would say, what's your history of this? And I would have to say, oh, well, I'm adopted. And then they would say, and they look, it's so weird, because they have like this like shame look. I don't know how to explain this, like this look where they don't know.
Yeah, at least I hadn't asked. Yeah.
And it's like, it's okay. Don't make me feel like about it. But it's always this weird feeling. But when they do that, but I remember feeling like, wow, I don't even know how to answer these questions. Then I started thinking about, what if my children, as they get older and they may need some type of hit, I don't know. Right. So I did have this urgency to kind of try to at least find some information just for my own peace of mind.
Right. And so I love that when my 17-year-old goes to the doctor, and they ask her, and she's like, I don't know. I'm like, here, call your mom and ask her, and there's no awkward. She calls us both mom. And yeah, like she got it when she was 10, so she was a mom. And it's funny because when people are talking to her, she's like, "No, not that mom, other mom," and they're just like, "I'm confused with all your moms," you know.
Right,
But
right. But you know what, Chevjon? One thing that I will say about people like you and I, people don't understand when you are not in like what's traditional family homes, when you don't know, this whole blood relative thing, when you are raised by people who share no blood with you,
mhm,
you understand family. Sometimes I think in a better way, not I
I
should say
agree.
better, but a different
Like a
way
different.
because yeah, because we're able to understand that family is bigger than just blood, right? We understand that
Right.
family can be so much more because we really had no choice but to understand that. And I think that's a gift because I personally think that a lot of people are kind of in a bondage sometimes because they feel like, well, that's my blood. I have to, I have to be loyal to this person. Or I have to do this because they're this and that. And you don't have to because we understand that family can look different ways. It's about who is sowing into you positivity, sowing love, and
Right.
sowing hope. If you're constantly taking from me, that ain't family.
I agree. I agree. Blood is not, yeah, no, blood is not always the definition of family at all. So,
Yeah, yeah. Well, Chevjon, you know what? I really appreciate you for sharing the story. I appreciate you for coming on today and taking the time, because you all are busy. Y'all building empires over there. You build chicken coops and
you keep
more
saying
tables.
empires, and I keep thinking chicken coops. Like,
I saw that picture. I'm like, look at her. I said, don't play with her. I love it.
man, I do too. It's come out really nicely. I'm like, you know what? I didn't know I had carpenter in me, but apparently my dad was a carpenter. So I guess, yeah,
Oh,
that's what I'm
wow.
finding out. So,
Wow, I'm just so happy for you, Chevjon. I'm happy for your children because you are able to instill life lessons that they may, some people can't instill in their children. You have been through a lot, but it's how we take those things that come in our life and how we use them to fuel us, how we use them to push us, is just a phenomenal gift. I believe. So, I really appreciate you. I appreciate, just just being so strong and, in such a loving way, in such a loving way and giving back to those children. And that's what I love about it when it comes full circle. You know what I'm saying? When
yeah.
you went through it and then you went and took somebody else out of that same situation. I applaud you for that and I appreciate that.
Thank you. And thank you for having me on the show too. I have enjoyed it. I can't wait to see you this summer.
Listen, honey, listen, and I don't play. I will pull up. Do you hear me? I will
Okay.
pull up and I'll bring lemonade. I'll bring something. I will bring something, and I have no problem doing that. That's for sure. So we will be in touch, and I will see how close you are to where I'm going, and we'll figure something out.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you for having me on the show.
Yes, yes. You have a beautiful night, and thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you.
You too. Thank you.
All right, take care.
All right, bye.
Awesome. I really, really enjoyed that conversation. Chevjon has so much strength, probably more than she even realizes. But I appreciate her. I appreciate her story. I appreciate her for coming on. I appreciate you sharing for commenting and, kind of sharing. I know you have a passion for helping young people and, people with mental health and people in the system and things like that. So thank you so much for all you do as well. I wish you all a good night. That was awesome.